Chapter 5 of Gulliver of Mars. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by James Christopher. Gulliver of Mars by Edwin L. Arnold. Chapter 5.
When I woke, feeling as refreshed as though I had been dreaming through a long night, An, seeing me open-eyed, helped me to my feet, and when I had recovered my senses a little, asked if we should go on. I was myself again by this time, so willingly took her hand, and soon came out of the tangle into the open spaces. I must have been under the spell of the Martian wines longer than it seemed, for already it was late in the afternoon. The shadows of trees were lying deep and far-reaching over the motley crowds of people. Out here, as the day waned, they had developed some sort of method in their sports. In front of us was a broad grassy course marked off with garland and finger-post, and in this space rallies of workfolk were taking part in all manner of games under the eyes of great concourses of spectators, doing the Martians' pleasures for them as they did their labors. An led me gently on, leaning on my arm heavier, I thought, than she had done in the morning, and ever anon turning her gazelle-like eyes upon me with a look I could not understand. As we sauntered forward, I noticed all about lesser circles where the yellow-girthed ones were drawing delighted laughter from good-tempered crowds by tricks of sleight of hand, and posturing or tossing gilded cups and balls as though they were catering, as indeed they were, for outgrown children. Others fluted or sang songs in chorus to the slow clapping of hands, while others were doing I knew not what, sitting silent amongst silent spectators who every now and then burst out laughing for no cause that I could see. But An would not let me stop, and so we pushed on through the crowd till we came to the main enclosures where a dozen slaves had run a race for the amusement of those too lazy to race themselves, and were sitting panting on the grass. To give them time to get their breath, perhaps, a man stepped out of the crowd dressed in a dark blue tunic, a strange vacuous-looking fellow, and throwing down a sheaf of javelins marched off a dozen paces. Then, facing round, called out loudly he would give 16 suits of summer cloth to anyone who could prick him with a javelin from the heap. "Why," I said in amazement, "this is the best of fools. No one could miss from such a distance." "Ay, but," replied my guide, "he is a gifted one, versed in mystics." I was just going to say a good javelin, shod with iron, was a stronger argument than any mystic I had ever heard of could stand, when out of the crowd stepped a youth, and amid the derisive cheers of his friends chose a reed from the bundle. He poised it in his hand a minute to get the middle, then turned on the living target. Whatever else they might be, these Martians were certainly beautiful as the daytime. Never had I seen such a perfect embodiment of grace and elegance as that boy as he stood there for a moment poised to the throw. The afternoon sunshine warm and strong on his bunched brown hair, a girlish flush of shyness on his handsome face, and the sleek perfection of his limbs, clear-cut against the dusky background beyond. And now the javelin was going. Surely the mystic would think better of it at the last moment. No, the initiate held his ground with tight-shut lips and retrospective eyes, and even as I looked the weapon flew upon its errand. "There goes the soul of a fool!" I exclaimed, and as the words were uttered the spear struck, or seemed to, between the neck and shoulder, but instead of piercing rose high into the air, quivering and flashing, and presently turning over, fell back and plunged deep into the turf, while a low murmur of indifferent pleasure went round amongst the onlookers. Thereat An, yawning gently, looked to me and said, "A strong-willed fellow, isn't he, friend?" I hesitated a moment, then asked, "Was it will which turned that shaft?" She answered with simplicity, "Why, of course. What else?" By this time another boy had stepped out, and having chosen a javelin, tested it with hand and foot. Then, retiring a pace or two, rushed up to the throwing mark and flung it straight and true into the bared bosom of the man. And as though it had struck a wall of brass, the shaft leapt back, falling quivering at the thrower's feet. Another and another tried unsuccessfully, until at last, vexed with their futility, I said, "I have a somewhat scanty wardrobe that would be all the better for that fellow's summer suiting. By your leave I will venture to throw against him." "It is useless," answered An. "None but one who knows more magic than he, or is especially befriended by the Fates, can touch him through the envelope he has put on. Still, I think I will try." "It is hopeless. I would not willingly see you fail," whispered the girl, with a sudden show of friendship. "And what," I said, bending down, "would you give me if I succeed?" Whereat An laughed a little uneasily, and withdrawing her hand from mine half turned away. So I pushed through the spectators and stepped into the ring. I went straight up to the pile of weapons, and having chosen one went over to the mystic. "Good fellow," I cried out ostentatiously, trying the sharpness of the javelin point with my finger, Where are all of those 16 summer suits of yours lying hid? It matters nothing, said the man, as if he were sleeping. Ay, but by the stars it does, for it will vex the quiet repose of your soul tomorrow if your heirs should swear they could not find them. It matters nothing, muttered the will-wrapped visionary. It will matter something if I take you at your word. Come, friend Purple Jerkin, will you take the counsel with your legs and run while there is yet time, or stand up to be thrown at? I stand here immovable in the confidence of my initiation. Then, by thunder, I will initiate you into the mysteries of a javelin end, and your blood be on your head. The Martians were all craning their necks in hushed eagerness as I turned to the casting place, and, poising the javelin, faced the magician. Would he run at the last moment? I half hoped so. For a minute I gave him the chance, then, as he showed no signs of wavering, I drew my hand back, shook the javelin back till it bent like a reed, and hurled it at him. The Martians' heads turned as though all on one pivot as the spear sped through the air, expecting no doubt to see it recoil as the others had done. But it took him full in the center of his chest, and with a wild wave of arms and flutter of purple raiment sent him backwards, and down and over in a shapeless heap of limbs and flying raiment, while a low murmur of awed surprise rose from the spectators. They crowded round him in a dense ring, as An came flitting to me with a startled face. "Oh, stranger," she burst out, "you have surely killed him." But more astonished I had broken down his guard than grieved at his injury. "No," I said smilingly, "a sore chest he may have tomorrow, but dead he is not, for I turned the lance point back as I spun it, and it was the butt end I threw at him. It was none the less wonderful. I thought you were a common man, a prince mayhap, come but from over the hills. But now something tells me you are more than that." And she lapsed into a thoughtful silence for a time. Neither of us were wishful to go back amongst those who were raising the bruised magician to his legs, but wandered away instead through the deepening twilight towards the city over meadows whose damp, soft fragrance loaded the air with sleepy pleasure, neither of us saying a word till the dusk deepened and the quick night descended, while we came amongst the guarded houses, the thousand lights of an unreal city rising like a jewelled bank before us. And there, An said, she would leave me for a time, meeting me again in the palace square later on, to see Princess Heru read the destinies of the year. "What?" I exclaimed. "More magic? I have been brought up on more substantial mental stuff than this." "Nevertheless, I would advise you to come to the square," persisted my companion. "It affects us all, and who knows, may affect you more than any." Therein poor An was unconsciously wearing the cloak of prophecy herself, and shrugging my shoulders good humouredly, I kissed her chin, little realizing, as I let her fingers slip from mine, that I should see her no more. Turning back alone through the city, through ways twinkling with myriad lights as little lamps began to blink out amongst garlands and flower-decked booths on every hand, I walked on, lost in varying thoughts until, fairly tired and hungry, I found myself outside a stall where many Martians stood eating and drinking to their heart's content. I was known to none of them, and, forgetting past experience, was looking rather enviously, when there came a touch upon my arm, and, "Are you hungry, sir?" asked a bystander. "Ay," I said, "hungry, good friend, and with all the zest which an empty purse lends to that condition." "Then here is what you need, sir. Even from here the wine smells good, and the fried fruit would make a mouse's eye twinkle. Why do you wait?" "Why wait? Why, because though a rich man's dinner goes at his mouth, the poor man must often be content to dine through his nose. I tell you I have nothing to get me a meal with." The stranger seemed to speculate on this for a time, and then he said, "I cannot fathom your meaning, sir. Buying and selling, gold and money, all these have no meaning to me. Surely the twin blessings of an appetite and food abundant, ready, and free before you are enough." "What? Free, is it? Free like that breakfast served out this morning?" "Why, of course," said the youth, with mild depreciation. "Everything here is free. Everything is his who will take it, without exception. What else is the good of a coherent society and a government if it cannot provide you with so rudimentary a thing as a meal?" Whereat joyfully I undid my belt, and, without nicely examining the argument, marched into the booth, and there put Martian hospitality to the test, eating and drinking, but this time with growing wisdom, till I was a new man, and then, paying my leave with a wave of the hand to the yellow-girded one who dispensed the common provender, I sauntered on again, caring little or nothing which way the road went, and soon across the current of my meditations a peal of laughter broke, accompanied by the piping of a flute somewhere close at hand, and the next minute I found myself amid a ring of light-hearted roisterers who were linking hands for a dance to the music a curly-headed fellow was making close by. They made me join them. One rosy-faced damsel at the hither end of the chain drew up to me, and, without a word, slipped her soft baby